language creates meaning, and meaning creates emotion. Emotions create energy, and energy creates action. So the words that we choose ultimately create how we physically navigate through the world.
And here we go again. We are the Level Up Guys, and this is the Level Up Guys podcast. Today, we're talking about words, language, and why it matters. The words we use can really shape our reality, impact our relationships, all sorts of things, and this is the deep dive. Jarrett, as a mental health professional, as a dad, and I know me as a business owner, like these things really matter. Tell me some experiences in your life where really words have had a profound impact on the outcome.
Yeah. So, right. The words that I use to describe what I'm going through. So, I mean, the one that is just so memorable for me because it was a real eye-opening moment. I was moving apartments and moving into an apartment kind of on my own, like fully furnishing it on my own for the first time. And it was awesome, but like also a really long day. And also just like an emotionally draining day and for a variety of reasons. And I hadn't eaten much that day for, just because I was keeping busy and trying to manage a bunch of different things going. And, and at the end of the day, everything's in the apartment, boxes everywhere, furniture, like not really where it's going, but like in the room where it's going. And it was overwhelming. And so I look around and I was feeling really motivated to like start setting up a space. That's actually something that I love doing. And I just looked at everything and had this like hopelessness wash over me of like, I got nothing. I was like starting to feel stupid. Like what, why am I not able to even look at this and like start moving something or have an idea like of what I'm trying to do. And it occurred to me that like, oh, I haven't eaten really much today. Like maybe I had a little early breakfast, but like nothing for lunch for sure. And it was in the evening at this point. And so I ended up going down the street to Panera, got like a pretty good sized meal. Like I think I got like their half and half plus like a mac and cheese and like, whatever. I just like kind of was piling it on comfort food for the most part, with some nutrition. And
they got those cookies. I got to bust in. They got those cookies that are really good.
I haven't even had the cookies, but I trust you. Panera's not bad. We can. They're one of our yet to be sponsors.
Stay tuned. I'm going to give you a pro tip for Panera after we listen to Jarrett's story.
Okay. All right. So I bring the food back and I'm like basically setting up my little plate on a box and, just eating. And I finish eating or probably most of the way through and ideas just start coming to me. And like, I get up and move something and then go back eating a little bit. And like, as I'm kind of trailing off in the meal. And then as soon as I finish my meal, I'm just up and I like am moving like a love seat by myself and like positioning it at the angle that's going to like work for where the TV I think will probably go. And so I was like, what happened here? Right. And I was hungry, but I thought that I was hopeless. Right. And so if I just proceeded with like despair and like, I'm, if my self-talk continued around like, you suck right now, or like, you're not good at this, like this is hopeless, whatever it was at the time, then yeah, like that's going to lead to me probably not channeling any creative energy at any point. Right. But just like feeling terrible about myself. But instead I was able to like check in and be like, I think I'm hungry. And then my thoughts were like, yeah, you haven't eaten today. Right. So like I started with the feeling of like hunger and then kind of branched out. It's like, yep, that checks out. So when I was able to label it hunger, I could actually do something about it and change my situation and create a situation where I actually like was like, I do love doing this. I am good at setting up a space. Like that does bring me joy. And ever since then, when I start to feel like a dummy, or like, and have like just a lack of capacity to approach something that I feel like I either have before, should be able to do, I'm like, am I hungry? And it guides me so much more effectively. And has been like, yeah, you haven't eaten enough today. Let's get on that.
Yeah. Those labels that we stick on things can really have an impact on the trajectory of what we're talking about. We say that at our teacher trainings and in class. I remember like my first ever yoga class is this one posture called camel. It's a big time posture, like you really feel something. And when I first took class, I remember thinking like that is super challenging. And then today, nothing has changed. The environment's the same, the posture has changed. But now I think, oh, this is really strengthening. This is really transformative. I
Mm,
love this challenge. Nothing else has changed except like the kind of label that I stuck on it,
mm.
which makes it much more like beneficial in my brain.
Yeah. Yeah. It allows you to push through. And I mean, I'm a big fan of Tony Robbins. I know he's a character. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna hold on to that. What's your pro Panera tip?
Oh, propane chip. So I used to commute on my motorcycle back home in Boston. One yoga studio that I taught at was about 45 minutes away. So when I was done for the evening, by the time I got home, there was nothing open if I wanted something to eat, except for Panera. They close at 9:30. And so if you roll into Panera 5-10 minutes before they close, you know where I'm going with this.
I have a feeling I do.
They're going to give you a little bag of free cookies every single time. So even if it was like 9:10, I'd hold back. I hold back to like 9:25. I roll in, get my little turkey sandwich or whatever, and inevitably, because it's the end of the day,
Right.
who's buying cookies at 9:30 at night? So you get a little bag, and you're like super grateful and thank you, and yeah, Panera
Yeah.
pro tip.
Nice. You can tell them Billy sent you. No, I'm just kidding. They're like,
Yeah,
that's Billy.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's awesome. Nice. All right. Back to Tony Robbins. See, I've eaten just recently, so my brain's working.
yeah. You're going.
All right. So I love Tony Robbins. I think that it doesn't matter. Anyways, I love Tony Robbins. A big thing that he centers his message around is that our language, the words that we choose, create meaning, right? And it's true. The language, or the words that we use, even spoken, but certainly for our self-talk, they are the framework of our thoughts. Like, I've never had a thought in a different language than the one that I've spoke, or with a new word that I haven't learned yet, right? It's the words I'm most familiar with, and that they become my default, right? So that's like the words that my thoughts are typically in. And so he says language creates meaning, and meaning, like the story we tell, creates emotion, and emotions create energy. They literally are, a series of chemical and electrical energy, and energy creates action, right? So the words that we choose ultimately create how we navigate our life, right? Like how we physically navigate through the world. I think that's really important.
Yeah. Wow.
You like that one?
Yeah. I gotta think about it real quick. Yeah. I want to grab something because words are such a vital part. I know it's a vital part of your profession. It's such a vital part. I mean, essentially, I talk nonstop. The style of yoga and Pilates that I teach, I don't do the exercise and the postures with the class, I talk.
Mm-hmm.
And so when people are in a certain mode, if you're in like a meditative mode or a relaxed, or like a really receptive mode, the words that you hear, whether, like you said, it's externally from someone else or internally, can really influence on how you're feeling.
Yeah.
I really mindfully try not to say certain words in class unless it's with an intention. Like, everybody knows that if I said, hey, this podcast is really great, but I think you got some work to do. That but eliminates what I just said that was nice, right? Everybody knows this. If you use the word and, then they both still hold weight. This is a really great podcast, and I think we have some work to do.
Yeah. I mean, I love that example because, in particular, because it really allows for two things to be simultaneously true, right? great podcast, and we're working on making it better, right?
Yep.
Like yeah. So it allows for two things to be true when you say and that's a big, so Dr. Becky Kennedy is like a parenting psychologist that I follow and just adore. And I mean, her kind of core foundational beliefs really emulate mine when I work with parents. And she's big on that phrase, like two things are true, right? And our brain doesn't always like to think of things that way, right? It actually prefers, the default prefers categories. So it's like, this is either good or it's bad, right? Like kind of binary, essentially. It helps us really quickly sort through things and past experiences and whatever to make predictions about whatever's happening to us in the present day moment.
Yeah.
And so she has a really great perspective around this. And when you use the word but, right, it's like the second thing is true. First thing, you don't have to actually give weight to that, right? No, it's like both have equal weight.
Yeah. And it can be used in a productive way. For example, when I got up this morning really early, I didn't want to go take Pilates class, but I rallied and I went anyhow. So you can use it to start to eliminate that,
see.
I'm not really feeling well, but I'm going to go kick ass and do all this good stuff.
Well played. I like that. Yeah.
So I came up with a list. I mean, I'll share this. Comment below if you guys want to copy this list. So you're familiar with like KAV words, kinesthetic, audio, and visual. So there's different, how we're different types of learners.
Yeah.
And we're all bouquets of things. It's not one. Some people learn by listening. Some people learn primarily by looking. Some people learn kinesthetic by doing. So that Pilates training, I came up with this list. Can you see that?
Nope. It's blurring into your background. Oh, there we go.
Yeah. It's totally blurry. I get the fake background on because they didn't clean the house today. So, but this is a KAV word list. And it's broken up into columns as well, like visual, audio. So when we're teaching classes, like we're mindfully thinking like, what are these words that we're using that can really resonate with you? If I think that you're a visual learner and you learn by watching me demonstrate, right? You'll really feel good if I say you're going to see amazing results from taking this class and really notice how you're feeling, really. So these words, like, it's a really microscopic level you can go to and how it can have an impact on how we're thinking about how we feel about things.
That raises another great point that, the words that we choose direct where our attention goes, right? If I say, even if I say, don't think of elephants, right? Like that's just like a silly one, right? But, it's the type of thing where like you learn a new word and then you hear it like 2 times that week kind of thing. Or somebody mentions a certain color, or you see a certain color that's meaningful in a show that you watch. And then like you start paying attention to that. Right. And I think that it's really important because, the words you choose, and particularly noticing like the self-talk that we have and the words that we use for self-talk, it impacts how we present to the world and the things that we pay attention to during our day and even during our life. Right. So, purposeful word choice for when we observe our self-talk, or our thoughts, or even how we're speaking, it can either reinforce beliefs that we already have, right? Or it can shift beliefs by giving new counter evidence. But it's going to matter what we start to try to, or not even try to pay attention to. It's like the words we choose dictate what we start to pay attention to.
You just explained beautifully something that I've really struggled to really enunciate and get across, because we've had this conversation before. Just to backtrack briefly, if one of my staff is going in to teach class and they say, I'm feeling nervous, I try to say, well, maybe you feel excited. Maybe it's a very similar thing. And I think you just nailed it, because by saying I'm nervous, it's kind of disempowering and the energy will go there. If you say, and two things can exist at once, we already know that. But if you say I'm excited, that's a very empowering thing, then maybe you might have this creation of excitement and energy,
Mm-hmm.
to then be the best version of yourself.
Well, right, and it has to do with how we label our physiological symptoms, right? Like, so somebody who's does some really great research on this and has a great TED talk that sums it up pretty well. Dr. Lisa Feldman Barrett. Um, so in her TED talk, she describes a little bit about like that type of word choice, but one that she really goes into it with an example is back to hunger. Maybe I'm still hungry. I don't know. No, but hunger and dread both have a similar stomach churning like element to them, right? So like we feel something that where our gut feels a little bit empty and like it's moving and digesting, but like or like wanting to digest. Um, and what she says is what the environment that we're in, like we have our five senses that kind of try to interpret the situation to be able to label, am I hungry or am I experiencing dread? So like if you walked into a bakery, she says, and are smelling cookies, back to the cookies, man. If you walk into Panera and are smelling cookies, then you are likely to label that I'm hungry because you're getting those messages from your environment, right? It's again like what you're paying attention to. Now, if you're in a hospital waiting for test results or waiting for somebody to get out of surgery and you feel that stomach churning, right? You might be hungry, right? But you also are more likely to associate it with like a negative event that you maybe don't have any control over, instead of like hunger or whatever. Um, so yeah, I mean, and I have some mixed feelings about labeling emotions as one thing versus another. Like, so I mean, this is a question I can pose for you, right? So you've heard of like toxic positivity. Everybody's heard of it. And it's essentially just the summary is like when somebody is basically using positivity as a defense mechanism as opposed to like allowing for authentic emotions to show up because they are too hard to tolerate or whatever. Now, again, like what we're talking about is like having a positive perspective or like having gratitude kind of throughout your life no matter what it throws at you, of course, like that's what we're going to pay attention to, right? And so we're going to find pathways that the pathways that open up are going to be ones that lead to gratitude or lead to more positive experiences, right? But like what if we're discounting our emotional experience that could be really nervous in some way, right? Like would it be a different experience to say I'm nervous and that's okay? I can be nervous and make it through. Or I don't know. Like what are your thoughts about that?
Well, I think we both agree that it's a bouquet of things,
Yeah.
and the good can't exist without the bad,
Mm.
right? And we all know, like we cannot experience happiness unless we experience sad, because we won't know what that is.
Yeah.
You know, like people who are always busy, all the time. You're not really busy. That's just how you roll. This is how you go.
Yeah.
If you're pretty like neutral and you're like super swamped, then you're busy. But this is your normal thing. How you go.
Yeah.
I think it's that balance, that seesaw back and forth.
Yeah.
I mean, any sort of like toxic positivity or toxic this or toxic that, it's only as powerful as the person on the other receiving end of it. If someone were to be yelling at you and disparaging you and calling you names and tell you how horrible you are and all of this stuff in Mandarin, you don't speak Mandarin, it would have no effect on you at all because you don't speak that language. Energetically, it might if they were being like upset and aggressive.
Sure. Yeah.
Like that. But it's our taking in those words and taking someone else's thing, and the power of those words is only as heavy as we give it power to have.
Yeah. I think
It's
that's,
not easy. I'm super sensitive to how people are saying, like, uh, somebody says something, I take it to heart. I wear my little heart on my sleeve.
yeah.
You know, I mean, I know I look like a badass UFC fighter, but no, I'm a sensitive guy. I'm a sensitive guy, and so it's really hard to let not someone else's, you know, opinions or words or whatever not have an impact.
Yeah.
But here's the thing: we're at an advantage, and this is one of the reasons of why we started Level Up Guys podcast. We're at a big advantage because we're making lists, we're reading books, we're listening to this, and we're trying to, extrapolate it all,
Yeah.
consolidate it into this nice thing to be able to put out into the world. We're kind of at an advantage. So for us, some things that might not affect somebody else might affect us a little bit more deeply because when somebody says but, like if you're watching this and you didn't know that about but, you're screwed for the rest of your life. Because every time somebody
You're
says,
butt screwed for the rest of your life.
but every time somebody says,
And
you're like,
no.
oh, and should have said and you're
Yeah.
gonna be thinking, once you recognize the difference between "I'm sorry that I'm late" versus "Thank you for waiting for me,"
Yeah.
the whole world changes.
Yeah. Right. It's like appreciate. Right. Am I, um, like bringing energy, like energetically bringing guilt to this person or bringing gratitude to this person, and how they feel about waiting might be as a result of of which one I choose or which one I am kind of conceptualizing.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's
We
nice.
also spend a lot of time. I know I'm going off like on tangents here about the studio, but the words are such a big part of it. We spend a lot of time too behind the front desk thinking about what words we're going to say.
Yeah.
Because I used to be a traveling yoga teacher. I used to travel around, and I got opportunity to visit a lot of awesome studios and a lot of like not so awesome studios.
Mm.
And so that I know, like, if you came to Rebel Yoga and Pilates and you rolled in, and I said, okay, it's going to be really hot in there. Your goal is to stay in the room. If you start to feel like faint, Jarrett, or if you feel like nauseous, or if you feel like you might like throw up, just take a break. You can kneel down. And I just planted all this fear.
Mm.
Like, what do you mean I might throw up? What? What do you mean? I might get dizzy. I might get nauseous. I've created this, future anxiety and future stress
Yeah.
that doesn't need to be.
Yeah.
What I would say is breathe and have fun, and I'll see you in there.
Mm.
I'll tell you like where to put your shoes, where the bathroom is. You need a mat, towel, and water. Or like breathe, have fun, and I'll see you in there.
Yeah.
And that's it. And whatever else gets created in reality is from their own experience, from their own words, and from their own
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. I mean, this is slightly connected, I think, but like, so being a parent, right? Like and my daughter happens to be kind of in a language development phase right now. And, so my wife and I are trying to be really purposeful about the type of language that we use around her. And also that because it becomes her language and her reactions. So like, you know, um, if let's say like I drop something or spill something, and if my frustration response is like again, or like I don't know, or even just like a you know just like damn it, or whatever it is, that has like some of that energy behind it, and particularly also the language, that's different than oh boy, or like accidents happen,
Hmm?
right? And so I mean sometimes you have to fake your way into it, right? But I'm like we're trying to be super purposeful with the kid that we're raising, and so like I don't always feel like oh boy, you know like there it goes, oopsies, but like what is amazing is when she's getting frustrated, I'm hearing her say accidents happen, try again,
Hmm?
right? Or deep breath, try again,
Yep.
right? And like that gets absorbed. And so like you talk about creating somebody's perceptual experience, right? Like as you're sending them into the yoga room. And yeah, it's like, that's the life I'm living right now.
Yeah, that's super awesome. I love that. Witnessing the evolution and the growth. And it makes you a better person by default, right?
Yeah, like I start to absorb, like, accidents happen, or like it, spilling something or whatever, rather than like, my day's already going terrible and this is, which I can go to that place sometimes, right? But like, I'm more likely to now be like, well, that was silly, you know?
I mean, I just had this vision that I was out and somebody like got in a car accident and they got out of the car and they were like, accidents happen. That's toxic positivity is what that is.
Maybe. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Full circle. And so I can also share about like a client that I recently was meeting with, as you know, me as the therapist. So um, they were kind of self-describing um, their the way that they were kind of being around their home with their parents as annoying, and like acting kind of crazy and annoying and stuff like that. And so immediately I'm like, there's a value judgment in there, right? So it might truly be feeling annoying to the parent, but that doesn't mean that whatever the behavior is inherently annoying or bad or whatever. It's like, so I challenged him. I said, like let's find an authentic, but and maybe even more accurate descriptor that doesn't use a value statement. And he came up with silly and hyper. And I was like, okay, so when you feel like you are getting silly and hyper, what can you do? Like, where is an appropriate place to where is it, like an appropriate way to kind of place that somewhere in your life, right? And he really loves listening to like Weird Al Yankovic, and he's starting to play guitar, or he's like a little bit into playing guitar now. I was like, you should write a parody, right? Like write a parody song or something if you're feeling silly. And then you can show it to your parents, not during the workday, right? Or something like that. And then they'll be able to appreciate your kind of silly energy, as opposed to it being just maybe poor timing, or like the setting isn't right. Right. So it's like, it's not a bad behavior. It's not an annoying behavior. And if he labels it that way, then it actually, when he feels silly and hyper, it actually requires him to be doing it with somebody else at a poor time, right? He's like, this is an annoying behavior. So that's going to guide, like subconsciously guide how he looks to get that behavior out. Right.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, that's, I think, a solid example of like why word choice can really matter in the field.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of shocking to me that never once in school ever, like we had English class and all these things, but there was zero education. This is something you're just going to fly by the seat of your pants through life and try to figure out. And hopefully at some point,
Yeah.
find one little spark of information about it and then try again and again, every day, all day,
Yeah.
to do all that.
I know. Yeah. That's why I have, that's why I keep in work, right? Like, that's why I have clients, because this stuff isn't taught in school.
That's it for today, you guys. Make sure to follow us. You can find us on all the major platforms. If you really like what you heard, maybe share it with a friend, share it with a buddy, maybe share it with an enemy, because we all need a little bit of love. We're going to level up together. See you next time.